Hi guys, and welcome to another lyrical breakdown with me, your lady friend Bonnie. I hope you guys are doing well. I'm excited to be here. This is a song I'm really interested in letting you guys know about if you don't already know, and I'm definitely excited to break it down for you and maybe answer some of the questions that is being asked in this song. So this week I am doing Supaman Why. Why, you may be asking? Well, so let me get to like the information about the track itself. So September 8th, 2015, Illuminatives is the CD that, or the album that this was created on. And but then I was also finding things for like 2017, 2018 as well. So maybe there was like a single and an album. But I also found that Supaman himself had also put this song, or had, maybe he was asked. I don't really know the whole background behind it, but this was on an album that was created to raise funds for anti-human trafficking, which was funded by the United Nations. So I think that was a really cool project to be involved with. And it was called Music to Inspire, and it was from 2017. So there was other different artists that contributed songs as well. And I think that's really, really cool, and it's amazing. And human trafficking is definitely something that I've done a fair amount of research on it, actually, especially in Canada, but definitely not exclusively in Canada. This happens worldwide, where Aboriginals and Native people are often the target of a lot of human trafficking, whether it's for drugs or prostitution or different reasons kind of behind it. There's there are definitely people who are constantly attacked and taken advantage of by white people, I guess, and everybody else. So yeah, anyways, we're getting right on into it, are we? So this is a really interesting artist for me, to discover. And I was recently talking about the incarceration rates on another video, the incarceration rates in Canada, and how they have we have a much higher percentage of Aboriginals in our jails, particularly Aboriginal females. Actually, so I think that was really interesting, and that's kind of how this whole thing started and how the snowball effect. And I was like, I need to find out more about this. So and so since then I've been really searching for some native. I started off on the journey of searching for some native Canadian artists, but honestly, I don't really. Obviously it makes a difference. I'm sure there's different stories if you're on one side of the border versus on the other side of the border, whichever border you're on. I'm not necessarily a huge. I don't know everything about the United States and their system and how they have handled Native American people and Aboriginal type people and different tribes and everything else. I'm sure it's pretty similar to the Canadian difficulties, the different things that have come up. But so I'm sure it's pretty similar in kind of their issues and their struggles and different things that they're facing. I think that they're kind of encompassed between, I don't think borders matter necessarily for the First Peoples, right? So that was us that divided their land, and that's it. So maybe I'm not making myself clear here. But anyways, I'm not really sure the difference. The whole gist of that was I'm not sure the difference between Canadian and American government systems and how they treat them. So that was it. I definitely know that in Canada we have a lot of work still to do, and we are reconciling, but that doesn't mean the work's over. I'll just say that. And this is definitely something that's close to my heart. I've always been really interested in Native American people and Aboriginals, and I would love to go live and work up north in Nunavut. I know a lot of people think I'm crazy for wanting to do that, but I think that would be a super fun challenge and exciting, and see what's up there besides snow. So it's very expensive to travel up north, though. So, anyways, I'll just stop rambling, and I will keep talking about the topic I'm supposed to be talking about. So yeah, I mean, if you guys are interested in seeing more Native American or Aboriginal, Métis, whatever type of people of the First Nations people, I think there's like so many different words for them. That's why I feel like I'm really sure of saying like the right word. But yeah, if you definitely want to see any other artist, let me know if you know of any. Because I definitely found some that were really interesting. There was a few that I was kind of like torn between. I wasn't sure. I'm like, oh, do I do this guy? Do I do this group? I'm not really sure. So I definitely found some really interesting artists, and I would like to show them to you if you are interested. So let me know down below in the comments if you are interested. Otherwise, let me know what other songs you want me to break down for you, and I will get to it at some point. But this week, it's my choice. I feel like it hasn't been my choice in like a month. So not that really matters, but I think that's probably why I'm just doing something so random. Maybe not random, I hope. Anyways, I think that this artist is super creative. And it seems like he's really like the whole package. He can dance, he can sing, he can rap. He creates the music, the beats, and he loops everything. And he's like a DJ essentially, I guess. So I think he's really cool, and he's definitely someone that should be blowing up. So let's help him do that. And his real birth name is Christian Parrish Takes the Gun. I don't know why he ever changed his name. It's like pretty much the most like badass name there is. If your last name is Takes the Gun, I feel like you don't necessarily need to change it. But anyways, Supaman, you do you. And he also wears, I mean, I've seen a few of his videos, kind of like just searching through, and he seems to consistently wear the traditional like ceremonial dress. Like he has like the full like headdress with the feathers, and like it's really gorgeous when you see like what he's wearing and like the way he dances, because he does do the traditional dancing as well. I think they were just calling it fancy dance based off of everything that I was seeing. I didn't know if there was like any particular name or if there is in native languages. I'm sure there is. But he was born in Seattle, and he grew up in Montana, I believe, and is an, please forgive me, I'm going to try to get this right, Apsaluke artist. I don't know if Apsaluke, I don't know if that's right. And I believe he speaks English, and he speaks Sioux is the other language. Anyways, so that's kind of a little bit of a background about him. Really cool looking artist. I would highly suggest you guys check out the music video. I'll link it down below. But I think I will just get into it, and you guys can answer some questions with me as to why. Anyways, not playing the full song. I'm not an expert, just to let you guys know. This is just me and my opinion. So yeah, I'm not playing the full song, but I will play a little clip of it here, and yeah, then we can get into it. God don't see it all, but we call them black, them white, them Asians. Okay, so right away, it's cool. It's got a great beat. I think it's really like fantastically produced. I'll try to speak this as best as I can. Hana wena ha wen he, hana wena he, ha wen he yoa. I'm really doing a bad job. Hana wena ha wen he, hana wen ha wen he yoa. I'll just stop. It goes on a little bit like that. Apparently these are not actual words in Sioux, and more of just like a guttural sound. Again, something so cool about like these types of languages, and also that many of them aren't even written, which is pretty fascinating. So this is more of just like a sound, like a prayer sound that one would make, but it is like, obviously there's a flow to it, and there are kind of formed words I guess, right? It makes sense. These are words that are being spoken, but they're more just like sounds. I don't know if that makes sense. I feel like you have to go listen to the song to hear it. But yeah, so I mean, he's kind of starts off and he's kind of chanting and praying. And if you guys take a look at the music video, you'll see that he's creating the sounds as the song is happening, like at the very beginning, like he's kind of looping the sounds over and over. So it's really interesting because he uses like the traditional drum, and he uses a traditional kind of shake, like a kind of like a rainmaker, I guess. And he uses the sounds on the girl who's also in his music video, or the woman, who is also in fancy dress, in the ceremonial dress, and she has kind of like bells or like metallic noisemakers, I guess, on her dress, on her skirt, and he records like the sound of like of these metal sound noisemakers, I guess. He records that as well, and he includes that as part of like the sound. So it's really like very personal to him. It's very raw, and it just seems like he just creates sound out of almost anything. I think it's really cool. Anyways, I'll stop babbling. Let's get into the actual breakdown. So verse 1, why is one man rich and another man poor? Why we ain't satisfied when we gotta have more? Why we gotta have more? Why is suicide rates on the res so high? Why I tell you the truth, but you say don't lie? Why is being a good father at an all-time low? Why is it acceptable? Yo, why? I don't know. Why she blame him and he blame her? It's the useless. Ask yourself this question. Why are you making excuses? So they're obviously living very different lives. He's kind of comparing from like those that have and those that are have-nots. The people who, he's kind of wondering why there are some that have, food and water and, resources and, homes and beautiful things, and they can wake up and like life's not a struggle. And why is it the opposite? Why are some people constantly struggling? Why are some people having just terrible luck and just not being able to get ahead? Like, why is that? Why do some people have nothing? Why are there some people starving? Like, why is that? That is a good question. And then he's kind of saying, like, why do people have less, and are treated like they have less, I think. And why do people never feel satisfied? Why is there that constant urge for more, And I think that that's just a trait of humanity, unfortunately, is that we're just never satisfied, I guess. And I think these are all questions that we do wonder. Anybody who's, a conscious person, a moral person, definitely like asks these types of questions. It's definitely not hard. And it's difficult to like escape that, constantly wanting more and more and more, that we're never satisfied, and, that we're kind of essentially greedy in life. I don't know. And I definitely try in my personal day-to-day life. I try to think, when I'm cleaning or when I'm like, oh, I just like need to get rid of stuff. I just think, I'm like, you don't take anything with you when you die. You don't take anything with you when you go. Like, you don't need to have these things that are just there taking up space, taking up, it's junk, essentially. It's stuff that, when you die, it's just going to be thrown in the garbage and nobody's going to care about it ever again. A lot of things that are going to end up that way. And it, it definitely like adds to like climate change and like all the garbage and like everything else, and all these terrible images that we constantly are seeing, of the oceans filled with garbage. So I definitely try to take that and like actually try to do something with it. And like I said, that's kind of like my mantra. Like, you don't take anything with you when you go. Like, you don't need to have, the $500 pair of shoes. You don't need that. Like, it's not really going to make a difference in your life. But that's just me. I don't know what you do. Yeah. I just try not to have too much junk. But anyways, so again, so this kind of goes back to like me not knowing too much about like the differences between like the governments and like how Canada versus the United States treats their First Nations people. But like I said, I know that there are not very good things that happen in at least on the Canadian side, and that he's kind of asking like, why are there such high suicide rates on the reserves, and this is obviously because of the constant I guess, the constant like stuff that like white people have caused them to kind of end up. And I'm not saying like it's a hard topic to kind of figure out who's to blame, because I mean, yes, white people were to blame, but then things keep going, and then it's like, well, do you blame them? Be like, because like, but then we kind of walk away and we like wash our hands of them, and we're like, okay, so we're moving away, and like, you guys need to get better, figure out your solutions. Like, you're drunk or you're not feeling good or whatever, and like we just walk away. So I think that that's like an issue too. I think that it is lack of education. I think it's discrimination against like Native people a lot of the time, and they definitely they look a certain way, and so people are more easily able to like identify them and say, we're not about that, like we're not having them here or whatever. And it's also like just they don't have like, especially like in like the reserves, a lot of them are kind of like out in the boonies in the middle of nowhere, or they're like, like I said, here in Canada they're like up north, and they're not necessarily easy to get to, so like the resources are very limited. Their education, their schooling, their medical resources, they don't necessarily have like the greatest hospitals or the greatest therapists, things like that, to help people out. And I think that it definitely causes to have higher numbers of people killing themselves, unfortunately. Causes people to be in gangs and to be, maybe more violent and to abuse drugs and, just different things like that. And it just kind of creates these generations of addicts because people just can't be nice to each other. I think that's kind of where it starts, where it stems from, is that, you just have to have respect, and that's it. Anyways, I think that's a combination of different reasons, and it all kind of comes together, and like, the number of suicide rates increases the more people are mean to them, or discriminatory or racist or whatever, and then it just kind of escalates everything else. Plus, a lot of the residential schools, I don't know what happened in the States again or in the world, but this is generations of abuse that has happened. And so it's just like these generations and generations of people that are just dealing with neglect and abuse, and I think that that's very terrible. Anyways, let's try to keep this a little bit positive, I guess. So yeah, it is just sad. And then when he's talking about his truth, what he's seeing, and like what he's aware of, he's called a liar. He's told that it's not true, which isn't fair. And then he talks about the difficulties of being a father, being a good father, and it isn't taken as seriously. You can just get somebody pregnant and walk away, and that's it. You don't have to like necessarily have, unless you're a responsible person, you don't have to take care of that child. You can just walk away, like I said. But it's like, why would you want your child to not be raised with a father? I guess that's one way to look at it. And I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that both of his parents were alcoholics and died when he was young. So I think that that's obviously relevant to him. And it is important to have a father figure for sure, because it makes life difficult, and especially in like communities like this, and Native communities where, not that it's like a separated thing like between men and women, but whereas there are different and more traditional roles for both genders. And I think that if people are losing that connection to their heritage, and they don't know how to be a man in their culture, then they get lost. They're not sure what to do. They're not sure. They're like, okay, I'm not Native enough for this, but I'm not white enough for that. And it's just like this like whole, this is something that a lot of people unfortunately like have to struggle with. And I think I think just be a good father. I'll just leave it at that. So especially in like minority cultures, I think. And then the excuses that both men and women are apparently saying is about, these types of men, that basically like the bullshit just needs to stop, and, everybody needs to be more present and there for their children. And parents need to, if you are able to, if you're having kids and you've made that decision, then you need to step up and take care of your children. But at the same time, like, there's still, especially like again in this culture, and like for like these types of people, minorities, I think that there's still a lot of obstacles to overcome, and it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of patience. And I'm not saying that it's an easy thing to do. I'm certainly not, because this is something that we've been dealing with for a long, long time. So let's keep going. So why do parents gotta bury their kids while we text and drive, not caring how scary it is? Why it's so hard to forgive and leave the past behind, and if you did, then that's divine. Why don't you act like your brother when you see him fall? Why do we act like God don't see it all? Why do we call them black, them white, them Asians, and use labels? Now that's racism. So a parent shouldn't bury their kids. That's not the natural order of things. And so it's sad. And I think that, it's going to happen more and more unless things change. Because what type of a life do a lot of these kids who are in these communities, what type of life do they see for themselves? They see all their adults around them who are struggling, victims of abuse, victims of addiction, and and they see like the neglect and like the discrimination, especially in like these kind of like separated communities, these the reserves, the residential areas, and so they don't see themselves having a good future. They're not going to get the education to get jobs, to be able to do these things. Like, people are just going to keep putting them down. And so it definitely creates a culture and like a society in like their communities for suicide. It's, yeah. So, I mean, I can imagine, like, it's very like daunting for these children to try and imagine a better life, a place where they can escape and still be with their family and still have their culture and still do everything and live happily. But that doesn't seem to be what's happening, which is very sad. It's a disaster, actually. And then he talks about texting and driving, which is something that's really, really interesting, and it definitely causes a lot of car accidents, but definitely not something I've ever heard mentioned in a song or in any sort of like modern, I don't know, music, art, or whatever. Like, you just don't really hear about it, which is a shame, because it is definitely something that can kill kids, and it definitely something, I think it is good to include it in like rap music and like pop music and different things like that like the music that is being listened to by the younger generation. I think it is important for them to have that message, and for like maybe like the younger generation, like to maybe, hey, like Ariana Grande, sing about it in a song or something, and then you'll see everybody shutting their phones while they're driving. So that's it. And he's also talking about how difficult it is to be able to forgive, and to be able to find forgiveness within yourself, and to be able to move past that in your life. And you definitely have to let go of all of that like negativity, and you have to forgive, otherwise you're trapped, you're kept in that the jail of your own making, essentially. So you have to just let go and let things go, and you'll be free. And then he's kind of asking, it's like, you're able to forgive, but which he sees as kind of like a godlike behavior, and it is something that that the Bible teaches people. But why are you not able to help others? Like, why is it okay for you to forgive in one circumstance, but why do you just like ignore all the other things that are bad, that's in front of your eyes, that you're not helping with? It's kind of like when you don't report a crime. It's like you still failed at reporting that crime. It's like you're still like a suspect, I guess. So I think that just being like a good and ethical person, again, it means doing all of the things as a good and ethical person does, and not just some things in some areas, or like when it's convenient for you. It's like you have to, it's definitely hard. I think, nobody is perfect all the time, and it can be very difficult, and to be able to just like be honest and be, helpful, and help, if somebody falls, like, help them up. Don't just like point and laugh at them or whatever, like, help them out. And I think that he's also saying, like, you should try to raise people up instead of putting people down, and just like letting them suffer. Like, you should try to like help them out of like these dark, when people are in like a depression, maybe see if like there's something that you can do to like help them out, or like, just try your best, I guess. And he says that, God sees you when you turn a blind eye. So he sees when you're not good too. So he takes that into note, he jots that down. And like the labels that we put on ourselves and on our differences, is kind of what he's saying is creates the racism that exists today. And because of these labels, that's what happens. And it kind of reminded me of John Lennon's Imagine. If like the words were just never created to describe how people look and how different groups of people looked and behave or whatever, would racism still exist? Probably. I mean, people still scan. The first thing people see is, before they speak, before anything, humans are visual, and we see these things. And unfortunately, whether there's words or not, we're going to be like, oh, this person looks different, or this person looks different, or, or different from me, I think is what it is. I think it's different from yourself. And so it's just trying to find that relatability, because in the end, we're all just humans. And I think that that's it, and we can't necessarily just put people into boxes like that, into like categories. But I think it's just what our brain does. Unfortunately, we do categorize things. It makes things easier for us to understand. Anyways, so then we have the chorus. The chorus, I will give it another chance. I'll give it another try. Nope. Hana wena he ha when hey why. Hana wena he when hey yo wa why. Hana wena ha when hey why. Hana wena ha when hey yo wa why. And then he does that twice. And I really like the way that it mixes between English and his native language, and he's still asking why, like so many questions. And I think it's very important to ask questions and to constantly question things, I guess. And it creates like you're able to like think differently, and it creates different thoughts in your head and your mind. And I think it opens up the questions and the issues, and people are more willing to talk about it if you ask questions. If you're like, hey, why is this? Why are they treating me like this? Like if something is negative, or I mean, if there's anything that you're not sure of, I mean, the internet's right at your fingers, right? So you can just like look up anything. And I think that he's kind of asking these questions because he's hoping to get people to think and to act, and to be like, well, why am I doing this? Like, why am I texting and driving? Why am I not a good father? I don't know. Like, why? And like really think about it and be like, okay, well, there's more to it than just me deciding one day and just doing it. So yeah. Anyways, let's keep going into verse 2. Why is there innocent people locked up for life? Why some people can't say nothing nice? Why do we always gotta question what all of it means? And why won't you follow your dreams? Tell me why. The night when you took my dad, why'd you let me see my grandpa cry? And tell me why, and why do you choose to hide? So he's basically saying, like, he's asking why innocent people are put into jail for life when they're not guilty. And I feel like we've all heard stories or seen movies or listened to podcasts or whatever about people who got screwed over or framed, or just there was nobody else to blame and they were convenient and they just happened to be there. And, it's just, and they end up in jail, and they end up, I can think of, what is it, Life of David Gray or whatever, where the guy was found, like it was a whole setup just to prove. Anyways, I won't spoil the movie for you, even though it's like 20 years old. But yeah, it's basically just about being killed in jail, and and then being found innocent after he's killed. So I mean, that's definitely one thing. And I think he's also questioning, like, all these people, like, for this one act that they did, they are often arrested for years and years and years, and it may just be like a one-time thing. So, or they may be ratting somebody out and they get their free card and somebody else gets double the amount of time. So it's unfortunate, like, the way the whole system is set up. You know, but yeah. Anyways, why are people so hateful and mean and not more positive and uplifting? I think is kind of like what he's asking, and I think that also, I think the answer is kind of because of our backgrounds, because of our parents, because of our grandparents, our influences, what we watch, what we see, what we learn, and it is also. It's more of an effort to be a good person than it is to be a bad person. Because you actually have to act in a certain way, and you have to act in, you have to behave in a certain way. And I think it's just a lot easier, especially when you're down on your luck, or if you're an addict or whatever else. Nobody's been treating you nicely for like a long time, and sometimes it's just as easy as just making that one wrong, bad decision, and it could screw up the rest of your life. So yeah, I think that's kind of what he's saying here. And yeah, there's no real answer to why we're here on Earth and what our role as humans is. So I think that's kind of, a never-ending question. And then he kind of says, like, why are we not chasing our dreams? And I think, again, same sort of thing as previously mentioned. I think that especially young people, and I think that he's obviously, he grew up in like these reserves, and he kind of knows what was going on. So he can see and he can understand why people aren't chasing their dreams, why they aren't hopeful about the future. And I think that he's trying to change that. I think he's saying, like, hey, like, look at me, like, you can be like me. I'm successful, I'm happy, I'm doing what I want, like, this is, I'm making my art, and he's just being true, and he's asking questions, and he's being smart about it. And I think that's really interesting. And I think he's saying, like, he's not the only one. Hopefully they're just not pushed down and over again. So yeah, and then he talks about the night that his father died, and he feels like he shouldn't have seen his grandfather, who I assume is his father's father, basically his heartbreak when his father died. So I mean, I don't know, like, why it was that he died, or if it was, if it was suicide, or if it was addiction, or if it was just he just died, or if he was ill, or whatever else had happened. So yeah, I think that's really heartbreaking, especially when you see, like, like the patriarch, the person who's supposed to be like, so, and I assume, kind of like the man, and like kind of representing everything, when you're a kid and you're seeing your grandfather, who looks maybe he seems so important, and, he doesn't shed a tear, and he seems very manly, and and then you're just seeing his heart breaking because he's having to now bury his child, which is terrible. So I think that's kind of why he's talking about that. So he says, and why do you choose to hide? I think that kind of will tie into the rest of this. So even though you was born to fly, and tell me why, and why don't we turn from all the hate, and why don't we learn from all mistakes, and why do I keep wrecking these fat beats, and teachers don't make more than professional athletes, and why, hey, why, hey, why, hey, why, hey, why, hey, why. So I think he's kind of saying, like, even when you're destined for great things, sometimes it's easier, again, not to try, because it'll make you different, it takes effort, all of these things. And he's just kind of like asking, like, why. I think we know that he's asking why. And he's asking, like, why we become hateful people. Because of other people's hate, I think, that we are often receiving. I think that there is a lot of hate in this world, and I think that hate can be much more powerful, unfortunately, than positivity. And I think that, like, if you're told over and over and over again that, you're ugly, you're stupid, whatever it is, that you don't belong here, that you're your hair is too long, you look like this, you look like that, and people are just constantly like judging you and putting you down, and like, you're just existing. I think that definitely, like, all of that hate, I think it does end up inside of you. And I think that's obviously, we've heard about it time and time again as well, with like school shootings and stuff like that, people who are bullied. If all this hate comes into you, and if you keep that in, bad things are going to happen. You're going to kill yourself, you're going to kill other people, you're going to be violent, you're going to use drugs, you're going to you're going to make bad choices, you're going to be in gangs. And I think it's just because of, like, that's what that's what you think of yourself at that point, because you're like, well, everybody else is saying like all these bad and hateful things towards me, so I guess it must be true. I think some people at some point, their self-esteem just gets like bashed down, and then they start thinking that everything that everybody's saying about them is the truth, and that's where you get yourself into some trouble. So be nice to people. Yeah. I think we just need to, like, learn to pay attention to our mistakes and to not repeat the same things over and over and over again, and generation to generation, and that everybody's held responsible for their own behavior. I think. And I like that he kind of throws in like a little bit of braggadociousness when he's like, and why do I keep making all these great beats? And, just like, oh, it's so good. He doesn't know why, which I think is kind of funny. And it's like, it kind of lightens the track a little bit. It's a little less serious, like, at that moment. It's kind of cute. I like it. And why aren't teachers basically being, the people who are educating and molding, like, the next generation? Like, why aren't they treated like gold? Why are we, instead of just guys who play with balls, why do they get all the money? And the people who are working hard 9 to 5, and it's not 9 to 5. I feel like teachers work like a lot of the time. They work a lot of like late nights and like weekends, and they volunteer and they do other things. And I know it's like, oh, summer's off. A lot of them don't necessarily get summers off. And if they do, they hella deserve it. Imagine being trapped in a room with like 40 little kids just yelling, and the noise. Couldn't imagine. So yeah, thank you, teachers. We wouldn't be here without you. Yeah, definitely, like, yeah. I guess it's just because teachers don't get sponsorships, or they don't make money. Like, what they do isn't like fun to watch, I guess. So I don't know why, but maybe that's why. So then we have the chorus again, and it's the Hana Wena Ha Wen Hey Why Hana Wena Yo Hey Yo Wa Why. I'm just destroying it, guys. I'm really, really sorry. It's the same sound over and over again, and it is very like traditionally like native, I think, and it just sounds really, really good. And I really like their like handmade instruments again, like just to kind of mention the fact that there's like their the drum, like the traditional kind of like hand drum that they're playing with, which is like always amazing. Any drum ceremony that you can get to, or powwow or whatever, definitely check those out this summer. Yeah, I mean, it is definitely really cool that he's using that, and he's using like his own traditional instruments again, like the rainmaker, and like the sounds of her dress, I think, is just great. So that's pretty much it. And like, again, I would suggest very much for you to go check out the music video. It's basically just like him and this girl, and they're in like their traditional fancy dress, and they're he's kind of like playing and looping the mix, and there's just sort of like this table with his like mixing equipment in like the middle of a field at like sunset. And it's just beautiful. You're just like in this wide open space, and there's like kind of mountains. I guess it's Montana. Like, it's yeah, just really, really cool, beautiful. I love watching their dance. It's like the way he looks, and like it all, he looks like the wind, essentially. Like, that's the only way I can describe the way he's dancing, and like the flow, and like just like where the materials on his outfit are going. He just looks like the wind, which I think is really, really, really cool. Oh, and another fun fact is that apparently he was told to make spiritual and like motivational, inspirational music about topics that he was passionate about because of a spiritual encounter that he had, which I think is really great. I think that's the best kind of spiritual encounter that you can have, is just to kind of find that and like be told and do to just kind of stay on the right path and just speak your truth, get your message out there. And yeah, I think that's really great what he was doing. And basically, to like at the end of the music video itself, there are the lines, to dance is to pray is to heal. And I think I think he's hoping that there's a lot of people who are in, well, not hoping, I think that there are a lot of people that are in pain. And he's hoping that they can maybe find a way in dance, in movement, in prayer, to like kind of move on and be, heal, so that you can heal and be a complete person and kind of go on with your life and create what you can. And, so you're not stuck, that you can kind of float away and like spread your wings and you can dance like him. So I think that he's very, very hopeful, for sure. And I think that is a very uplifting song. And like even though it's still like kind of a negative, well, not necessarily negative, he's just asking questions, but he's asking serious questions, and I think he wants answers. I think that's what we all want, is when we ask questions, is that there are answers to things. I think that's what it is. So I think he's very hopeful, and I think it's really great. So that's pretty much it for this week. Like I said, I would highly suggest you check out the music video. It will be linked down below. If you guys do want to see any other Native, Aboriginal, Inuit, artists featured, let me know. And I think that their music is, like a lot of minorities, and especially for them as well. Not especially for them, because I know other minorities are just as not misrepresented, but like underrepresented, underexposed. So if you do want to see any other artists, I'm happy to like take on the role and like get all these like names and artists out there and kind of give you guys a little bit of exposure to like what they can create and like their sounds. And I think that's really cool, because they do have like a whole different style of singing and of sound, and like the throat singing, and like there's really just some really creative stuff that I think doesn't ever make it to the airwaves, the radio or whatever. And I think that it's a shame. So if you guys want to see more of this, let me know. Maybe a little less, I don't know if it's going to be less like a topic like this, but it'll be something else, something else that I'm obviously purposely checking. And if you guys have any song suggestions, definitely let me know. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So thank you so much, as usual. Thank you for watching and for enjoying this. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. And I would like to thank our patrons. So we've got Linda Williams, Ismail Gadamsi, Chris Prado, Carl J, and our newest member and newest supporter, Jonathan Barnes. So thank you so much, guys, for supporting us and for believing in our little channel. We're doing what we can do, and we hope that you care about it. That's pretty much it. So, so like I said, if you do want to support us in the Patreon, we'll have all the information will be linked down below. If you want to see any songs broken down, again, leave those in the comments, or if there's any other comments that you want to say, just say hey, and I will reply. So thank you guys so much, and I hope to see you guys next week. Bye!